Hello and welcome to KLM Institute.
Today, we are diving into a major development in international law that has the world on edge. The International Criminal Court (ICC) has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The charges: crimes against humanity and war crimes, for their actions during the ongoing conflict in Gaza. This is a dramatic move, and it's sending shockwaves through the international community. Let's break it down in detail, covering every angle of this story. The ICC, based in The Hague, Netherlands, was established to hold individuals accountable for the gravest crimes: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. While Israel is not a party to the Rome Statute, the treaty that created the ICC, Palestine is. This means the court can investigate actions committed in the Palestinian territories. In 2018, Palestine referred the situation in Gaza to the ICC, and several countries followed up with additional referrals. These include South Africa, Bangladesh, Bolivia, and others. This is crucial because it's these referrals that have led to the ICC's involvement. In January 2024, Chile and Mexico joined in the calls for investigation, focusing on Israel's actions, particularly since the escalation of violence in October 2023. So, what exactly are Netanyahu and Gallant accused of? The ICC claims there are reasonable grounds to believe that they intentionally and knowingly deprived Gaza's civilian population of basic necessities, including food, water, medical supplies, fuel, and electricity. These acts, the ICC argues, amount to starvation as a method of warfare. Beyond that, Netanyahu and Gallant are accused of overseeing other inhumane acts, including the murder, persecution, and torture of civilians, as well as preventing medical supplies from reaching those in dire need. The situation in Gaza has been horrific. The scale of civilian casualties is staggering, and the UN and human rights organizations have been sounding the alarm for months. As of November 2024, thousands of lives have been lost in Gaza, including many children, women, young adults, and elderly individuals. The numbers are heartbreaking, with hundreds of children killed and countless families torn apart. Human rights groups have condemned Israel's military actions as disproportionate, and this ICC warrant highlights the deepening international pressure against Israel. But what does this arrest warrant mean in practical terms? If Netanyahu or Gallant were to travel to any of the 124 countries that are members of the ICC, they would be obligated to arrest them and send them to The Hague for trial. This has already happened with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the same could apply here. However, Israel's key allies, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany, are not likely to support such an arrest if Netanyahu were to travel to their countries. These nations have long backed Israel's right to defend itself, and politically, it's unlikely they would turn on him. Now, let's dive deeper into the impact of this development. While the ICC has no direct enforcement power within Israel, the warrant could isolate Netanyahu diplomatically. Countries like Germany, France, and the UK, all ICC members, may face a tough choice if Netanyahu seeks to visit. More than just a legal move, this is a powerful statement that Israel's actions are under global scrutiny. Looking at the broader picture, this arrest warrant is part of an increasing international push for accountability in the Israel-Palestine conflict. While Israel claims it is defending itself against terrorism, the allegations from international bodies suggest that its military actions, particularly the bombardment of Gaza and the blockade, may amount to war crimes. The situation in Gaza is often described as a humanitarian disaster. Reports from the region speak of a medical crisis, with hospitals overwhelmed by casualties, shortages of critical supplies, and infrastructure in ruins. The young, elderly, and women are bearing the brunt of this violence. The question remains: how many more innocent lives will be lost before the international community can come together for peace? The ICC's move has already sparked reactions around the world. Some view it as a moral victory for Palestine, a way to put pressure on Israel and force them to confront their actions. Others argue that the ICC's involvement could complicate peace efforts and escalate tensions further.
Now, I will be very sober in my comment. It is not a political decision. It is a decision of a court of justice, an international court of justice. And the decision of the court has to be respected and implemented. So I take note of the decision of the International Criminal Court to issue arrest warrants from Prime Minister Netanyahu, the former Minister of Defense, Mr. Gallant, and the Hamas leader's Steve. This decision is a binding decision, and all states parties of the court, which include all members of the European Union, are binding to implement this court decision.
In addition to the charges of starvation, murder, and persecution, Netanyahu and Gallant are accused of direct involvement in other violent acts against civilians. These include the destruction of homes, the targeting of civilian infrastructure, and the reported use of torture. As the world watches, the question arises: will this arrest warrant change the course of the conflict, or will it remain a symbolic gesture? The plight of Gaza continues to be one of the most pressing humanitarian crises of our time. The death toll has been catastrophic, with over 10,000 civilians reported killed, including women and children. Netanyahu's government has defended its actions as necessary for national security, but critics argue that the scale of civilian suffering suggests something far darker: a modern-day genocide. The destruction, the killings, the deprivation of resources, all paint a picture of a relentless and unforgiving military campaign. As the ICC takes a step towards holding Netanyahu and Gallant accountable, the world watches closely. The question remains: what will be the long-term consequences for Israel, and how will this affect the lives of the people of Gaza? This is not just about arrest warrants. It's about the ongoing struggle for justice in one of the most conflict-ridden regions of the world. With Netanyahu now facing the possibility of arrest in ICC member states, the pressure on Israel intensifies. The legitimacy of its actions is being questioned globally, and this may be the turning point in international discourse about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Stay tuned as we continue to follow this story closely.